flowers don't continually bloom. They have moments where they bloom and they grow, and then they have moments where they're not, in their off season. And just like how we apply that to training in physical fitness, we have to remind ourselves that we're not go 100 miles an hour all the time. Sometimes we just have to drive at a different speed.
So welcome back to the Future of Hospitality, everybody. This episode is part of our special series, Unscripted Hospitality, where, have the opportunity to speak honestly, without filters, about the industry and certainly the amazing people that we have the opportunity to impact and interact with. And today's episode is powered by Auhai, the leading global sales organization representing the world's finest luxury hotels and resorts. And today I am kind of really excited about this conversation because I'm going to be talking to Sarah Dandashy. And as you probably know, she's really a rock star of our industry. She does so much to help us become better at what we do, bring a lot of amazing perspective. She's a luxury hospitality and travel media personality. She's done a TEDx that is super cool, that hopefully we're going to learn a little bit more and how you came about that. Best-selling author, TV and podcast host. She also is the host of the Good Morning Hospitality with her partner and good friend,
Steve Turk.
Steve Turk.
Yes.
That he has amazing book and amazing coffee. Check it out if you haven't had his book and his coffee. And then also, Sarah, I think you perhaps began with the Ask Concierge, right? That does amazing inspiration for a lot of travelers. So, Sarah, thank you for being here with us, and certainly appreciate everything that you do, not only focus on travel, but also people, and can't wait to explore this today with you.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for having me. This is going to be a fun conversation. I love unscripted. Let's go.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I think logic question probably in everybody's mind is,
Sure.
You've been a world-renowned concierge, being recognized as the best in, was 2015 or?
Yes, when I was still young.
Yeah, right. You're still young, very young. And, so how that came about, to transition from a concierge to kind of take the step into going to your own with Ask a Concierge. What is a little bit about that, that journey?
Sure. So, for just context, I began as a professional concierge in luxury hotels in 2005. In 2012 is when I ended up coming up with the brand Ask a Concierge. And it started as I was taking a writing course, and it started very much as a homework assignment. I had to do a vlog on what, at the time, I was like, what people would consider me a quote unquote expert in. Now, that's always really tricky because everybody's always like, well, I don't know. And it's interesting because we often give ourselves far less credit for the information that we actually know because it's so close to us. So I start this vlog in 2012. The videos are still up online. You can see with my goofy little scarves, I look like a flight attendant, even though I was a concierge. And so Ask a Concierge started then in 2012. And I very much was working at a hotel. I was working at a hotel until 2000. Now, I could have left earlier, but it is hard and scary to go out on your own to be like, can I actually do this? And so for the longest time, I had my online brand while I was still working at a property. And thank goodness I had amazing teammates that were super flexible because I'd work like 10 days to have 10 days off. And then I would go travel and go and film and do all these things and then come back. But that's kind of the brand. They were very much overlapping. And then it became a very natural progression to then go off on my own. So it wasn't just like, I'm quitting everything and doing this. It's like, no, there was a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, and all of that extra cash that I made on the side, I would put into investing in videographers, editors, all of that stuff, creating videos before really a lot of other people were creating videos. So that's kind of how the backstory of it happened. But I think a lot of people will look at things now and they'll be like, oh, well, because maybe they just discover you on whatever platform and they're like, oh, who's this person? And they don't always see the years that it's taken to get there. So it's been a journey, but worthwhile for sure.
Yeah, no, it is beautiful. And you're so right. I forgot I listened to a podcast and I think it was Ed Milet or someone recently where, to your point, he was saying that, we overestimate what we can do in a short time and underestimate what we can do in a long time. Right.
Yes.
And to your point, I think it's, someone looking, at you from the outside, of course, you're very impressive. You've been very successful. You're going to tell us a little bit about this sale to Skift and all that.
Yeah.
But no one sees like all the effort, the time that you put in these years when, people are not aware of you per se, right? Yeah. And then suddenly here you are. So it's definitely, years and years of effort and trial and error and
Totally.
days probably that you felt like, is it going anywhere? It might make any difference. And
sure.
Then,
yeah, exactly. And I don't know if it's ever bam, I think we're always kind of like, okay, there's like more I can be doing for sure. But I think what's so cool, and I don't know when you'll air this, but we're recording this right before the holidays. And I'm not a big holiday person, but my favorite holiday is New Year's, specifically New Year's Day, because that's definitely a time that I always like take a moment to take stock of like what's happened over the last year. Because I mean, we're in such a society and world that like we're always focused on what's next. And sometimes we just don't stop and breathe and give ourselves like that little pat on the back, like, hey, you know what? You did this year. That's amazing. And then also set those goals that make sense for like the next step. Like, how do we take it to the next level? And, I've always been a big fan of just always constantly checking in on yourself. And I believe in doing it on a quarterly basis, just like how businesses do quarterly, recaps and they're checking in on how they're doing. We as humans, especially as entrepreneurs, I think should always be doing that. So.
Yeah. That is great. And talking about, these check-ins, do you have a habit or do you have, a schedule that you try to follow, or is just something that you try to be aware and then it's ebb and flow?
As far as like the check-ins?
Yeah.
So, okay, I'm gonna share my weirdness factor. I've always had like an internal clock that would have me do that. I remember doing that with myself when I was like 13, 14 years old. So yeah, weird. Most kids definitely don't do that. I would always check in with myself to be like, is this working? Does this make sense? I mean, maybe it wasn't like, oh, what I've accomplished. Obviously, it's become far more refined over the years. But I always had this like stop and like, okay, wait, what's working? What's not working? What feels like too much? What do I want more of? And then like, how do we readjust? So there's a bit of an internal body clock with that. But then I do actually have reminders in my phone. And funny, because even just last night, a good friend of mine who works in hospitality, head of HR for a very, very big hospitality brand. And she and I were talking and I was like, look, let's do this together. Let's every quarter set aside a weekend, go somewhere and just like, talk to each other, spend time alone, figure out what's going on. But I feel like that constant like check in and like recalibrating is so important. Look, we rotate our tires on our car. We should like emotionally rotate our tires, so to speak, with ourselves so we can keep going forward. I did not think I was going to be doing car references on today's show, by the way. Not planned.
Yeah. It's a little tune up, right? Tune up time.
Totally.
So do you think that this, like how you seem to be naturally wired, right? Because to your point, it's not as natural, I think, as a young 13 to have that intuition
Yeah.
or that self-awareness. So do you think that's where you kind of bring a little bit of the human side to travel and really, into what you share and what you cover? Do you think that's part of where that comes from, or how
Yeah,
did
I
that came up
mean,
with
I
that?
think it's so interesting because I do think of it. For those that might know my story, but for those that don't, so I'm half Lebanese. I know I don't look it, and so I was born in the States, but at the time my parents were living in Saudi Arabia. So as soon as the passport came in the mail, which was literally 3 weeks later, I was on my first flight to Saudi, and I lived in Saudi until I was 6. And my family on my dad's side, they all live in Europe and the Middle East, and then my family is scattered all throughout. On my mom's side, they're scattered all throughout the United States. So like to see family, we just like had to travel, and not just road trips, but like fly places. And so being exposed to that, and then also growing up in a multicultural household where I was a very stubborn child and refused to learn Arabic. I have an ear for it, but I was constantly in rooms where I would not speak the same language as people. So what does that immediately, you always are like, oh my gosh, are they talking about me? And so like you learn to pick up on like body language and how to like fit in, or maybe even chime in, even when you don't necessarily know the full breadth of the conversation. And so I think to be geared and be in that sort of environment as you're growing up, you're always kind of in the place as far as like being the other. And it's not necessarily other as an ostracized, but like definitely different and standing out. So you're constantly reading for cues to be like, okay, how can we connect? If we're not speaking the same language, how can we connect? And so that's why, like, for me, when I always say like, it comes back to the human element, like that is what it really is all about. And especially now, like in a world where we're like pummeled with social media and algorithms that are meant to like divide us as opposed to bring us together. I think that this is a really important reminder. And I also think that's also why like hospitality made sense for me too, because it was a natural place that like you can connect with people and people from all different backgrounds, which I love and relate to. And to me, that's what makes life interesting and cool. So for me, different is cool for sure.
Yes, yes. And what was you lived in some amazing destinations,
Yeah.
right? Throughout your life. Do you have a favorite or a top two?
Oh gosh, it's so tough. They all have like different things. So what was so I lived in Saudi Arabia before Saudi Arabia was cool. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that, but I just said it. So whatever. But it was great as a child. It was fine. And I lived in London, England as a kid, which was also very interesting. And then I lived in Atlanta from 8 to 18. So I always joke around that I've got like a little bit of this properness, but then I got some dirty South in me. And then there's this weird Arab side that comes through, and then I just look like wholesome all American pie. So it's very confusing. But and then I lived in DC. I went to college in DC at Georgetown, and then lived in New York, and then in LA 20 years. So I mean, I think like LA has been my favorite place. I mean, it's the home I chose. There's definitely something about the creativity here, but all places provide something cool and unique. I was grateful that I got to have my childhood in Atlanta where I could like walk to school. I mowed a lawn, like I'd mowed my mom's lawn and stuff like that. So I think these are like very wholesome things that are helpful to have when you're growing up. But then to have the context of like being in big bustling cities, going to New York City as a 7-year-old, you're very different. Your worldview is very different than if you're like finally going there a little bit later in life and you're like, whoa, this is what big city is. So I think it just was exposure to so many different things. I love that. And it's still to this day, I think I thrive on it. Hence all the travel I do. So it's pretty cool.
That is great. Yeah. It's funny because I grew up, I'm from Brazil, and I grew up
Yeah.
in Brazil, and talking about Lebanese community there is humongous.
So fun fact that I never get to share, but I can share this with you. So at one point, my grandfather was the Syrian ambassador to Brazil. And my dad was technically born in Damascus, but they lived in Brazil for quite a bit as a kid. And so, yeah, how fun is that?
There you go. Very fun.
Yeah.
Amazing food. I
Yeah.
love Lebanese food. Love it.
It's fun. The best. Very
Yeah.
good.
That's
I'm
awesome.
biased.
Hopefully they had a great time in Brazil. So,
Oh my gosh, of course. Totally. Totally. Who wouldn't? Come on.
yeah, right. Who would? And actually, we just booked over the weekend our trip to Brazil. We're gonna celebrate Gabby's, our daughter, 15th birthday there in February.
Oh my gosh. That you guys, it's going to be amazing. You don't need me to tell you that, but that's so great that you're going to be there.
Yeah, that'll be cool. That'll be cool. And like when you were, how did the TEDx come about to you? Was that
Oh.
something that you challenged yourself, or?
Yeah. So I had as a goal written for myself for many years to do a TEDx. I didn't know what about. Also books too, and I've got 2 more books in me. One that I'm going to be working on when I'm not traveling as much. And it's like so I knew I wanted to do it, but here's my thing. It's like, okay, yes. I might set the goal of wanting to do something, but I'm like, it's got to be right, and it's got to be the right message, or else I won't do it. Like, it's got to really resonate. That's just how I operate, like really coming from a real place. And it's funny because it's like it came together. It was like such a crazy way of coming together. A colleague of mine had just done a TEDx, and I was like congratulating her and telling her, "Oh my gosh, I want to do one." She's like, "Oh, you should like reach out to my coach." And I'm like, "Okay, whatever." So I did actually reach out to a coach because I figure they're very formulaic, and it's like, it's good to have some guidance. And I remember we were talking about different topics and we kind of came on this one, and I actually didn't like the topic. And the topic was the secret to making someone feel special. To me, it felt very simple. And for those that know me, no, I'm very complex and I like these complex thoughts and all of this, very cerebral. But then the more that we thought about it, or the more I thought about it, it was like, sometimes people just need the simple reminders, and it is just about the simple things. And that's also the core of the message. So I ended up getting booked, and it was could not have been a busier time. Normally you have like 3 months to prepare for these things. I had 5 weeks, and 3 of those 5 weeks I was going all throughout Southeast Asia for filming in 6 different countries. And I had like a week in LA that I was filming at 5 different locations. So I came back and I literally only had 7 days to memorize and put it all together, and did. And it was just one of those moments that I've done a lot of things. Writing a book and doing the TED Talk are definitely up there as far as like the 2 hardest things I've done professionally. I've done a lot of things professionally. So, yeah, it was wild, but so rewarding and very cool.
Oh, yeah, it is pretty cool one. If no one saw or whomever didn't see, would recommend to watch
Yeah.
it.
It's a good one. It's only 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And I think also knowing that like it's fully memorized is another big thing. I don't think everybody realizes that. They think, oh, a teleprompter, and it's like, nope.
And how hard was it to memorize and deliver in
that short of time?
unscripted way, right? Like not in a,
Yeah. Oh yeah, because none of my things I do normally are scripted. It is very challenging. I mean, basically, it's like a 10-minute monologue. It reminded me because I have a background in acting, and I did a lot of Shakespeare as a kid because again. Wow, nerd alert. I'm just sharing all of my secrets. But I very specifically remember memorizing Shakespeare as I was like walking to and from school as a kid. And there was a lot, like this was bringing up a lot of that. I mean, one of my first auditions I did, I was 13 years old. I got myself an audition. They're like, you make sure you bring your mother. And so I like told my mom, like, well, I got an audition. And so she took me. And so like, I've always kind of had that initiative and drive, but it's challenging, and it definitely is a muscle, and it definitely takes practice, and it definitely takes performing it in front of other people. So like making sure that you're saying it, you're not just saying it out loud to yourself in a room by yourself, but you need to do it to other people, in front of other people, like a friend, a spouse, somebody like that. Cause that's when it finally kind of starts to become a little bit real. So it's tricky. You just got to keep going at it.
Wow.
Yeah. It's not easy.
Listen, if you can memorize and recital Shakespeare, I think you can do anything.
I mean, so they say. So they say.
Yeah, I would struggle a lot with that.
Yeah, it's tricky. It's definitely tricky. So,
Yeah,
but yeah, again, it's like you feel it, you get into the cadence of it, and
right.
and you just remind yourself of your through line. Like, what is the point of this? So it's not
Yeah.
just words, but there's meaning behind it.
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow, there's so much here. So I have,
So you're like so much to unpack.
well, yeah, because I don't want to, so okay. So you said that writing a book and the TEDx is, you put right there on the most challenging professional things you've done.
Yeah.
What about is one of the most challenging personal things you've done that you're really proud of, or I don't know, unexpected?
Um. That's a good one. Interesting. I did the Los Angeles Marathon many years ago, and that was really that was great. And then I also did a Tough Mudder, which is kind of like an obstacle version of like one of those sort of races. Um, yeah, I mean those are up there. Definitely is being challenging. Oh, I did yeah, look at me. They're all like physical challenges. But I did the Red Rock Relay. And so for anybody that's done a relay, you're with a group of like 12 people and then you run, like you take turns running for the course of 24 hours. That was pretty wild. Especially running at elevation when you don't live at elevation. so yeah, so definitely I tend to push and challenge myself. That's for sure.
That is good. Tough Mudder,
You're like,
marathon.
I'm adding these all to my list.
Well, it's funny that you say this because just a few weeks ago, I signed up for a half Ironman. I never done
Amazing.
anything like this ever. So
Amazing.
it's
The
gonna be
swimming is going
September.
to be, whew, that swimming part is wild. That's tough.
Yeah, so gotta prep for that, and then also doing Savage Race in March, which is a similar
So
to
probably like Tough Mudder, right? Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. Oh, that's fun. I love those. And I think the part that I love the most about that is it
Good.
strips us of like all like you're actually getting like down and dirty and muddy and it strips you of like all these like pre-programmed these pre-ideas of like who we are, how we show up, and you just like have to get through and you have to be creative like physically. And I think for me why physical activity is so important is we're so caught in our heads all the time, and I think
Right.
being physical takes you out of your head, and especially if you can do something and literally like play in the mud. That like how great to do that in a world that like we're always like prim and
Like,
proper and put together and I got the curls all and then it's like no curls, straight mud, let's go. So yeah, I love those types of things.
that is great. Very good. Thank you. So you gave me inspiration. So
You got this. Oh my gosh, I'm
yeah,
going to be rooting for you. I love this.
that is. And then like you talked about like doing recording in Southeast Asia when you're
Yeah.
prepping for the talk and doing shoots there. How do you select the destinations you cover? How do you go about that?
So most of the time they reach out to me. So they reach out to me and then invite me and then we work out whatever that ends up looking like. So so it's the same thing as like if I'm like working with a cruise line or a destination or a hotel. I've been very, 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 very lucky that most come to me. I think that's just from being like just consistently like prevalent and online. And and then we just figure out like what they're looking for. So do they want something that's going to feel more quote unquote organic? Is it something that I'm filming with my phone and my drone? Do they want something that's going to be more like polished that they can also get marketing material for? And then that's when we have a videographer and / photographer that comes with. So again, it just depends. Like no project is really the same. But in that particular one, I was working with the Mekong River region. So the Mekong River runs through 6 6 different countries. So we had to literally go to 6 different countries, including China for 48 hours, which was wild. And Myanmar, formerly known as Burma, which is do not travel to, but we had such an incredible time. So it's so incredible to get to go to these places and to just like have that slice of life and just get a feel for it. And it just reminds you, like, again, like me having those experiences, just I come back and I'm just reminded of the human aspect. Like we're all the same. We all just want shelter, food, family, and like people to love. Like that's really what we want. You can add a couple of extra things to it, but like really at the root of it, that's what it is. So yeah, for me, it's nice to kind of have those experiences, and then you come back and you're that much more grateful for what you do have.
Or there any of these experiences or any other experience in your travel, could be not as a kid or, one of your work projects that
Yeah.
kind of transformed or really, I don't know, made you really kind of have an awakening moment or something that's really, wow, this is really something that I haven't had experience, or something really, really unique?
That's a good question. I mean, I think when I finally went to Asia for the first time, that was pretty special just because I had been so much through Europe, the Middle East, and like the States. So that was wonderful to see culturally. I'm just trying to think as far as and it's like as a specific, because like travel's just always been a part of like my experience.
Yeah.
So for me, it just feels like it's just feeding this natural curiosity and this like exposure to different cultures, foods, things, smells, whatever. I mean, I've definitely had a lot of crazy experiences, but I don't know if like not necessarily all good ones. Like I had one. I'll just share this, and I don't know where we're going with this story, but because it came up the other day when I was talking to a friend. My first trip to Asia, we did Thailand, Malaysia, and Indonesia, and we were finally getting to, and we were exhausted. Like we were working. Because we were doing a campaign where we would post, hey, we can either play with the monkeys or go see an elephant sanctuary. And we post it on our stories, and we would have our viewers choose what we should do, choose our own adventure. So like we were like up until 2 a.m. We'd wake up at 5 or 6, get started. We were very exhausted. And we finally get to Indonesia, and we're like so tired, and we're like, oh my gosh, we finally get a day to rest. We're looking forward to it. And the story is about to take a sad turn. But we get there. We have this wonderful guide. He's great. He's talking to us. And then he turns around. And as he's talking to us from the front, by the way, there's a driver and a guide, I should say. The guide is talking to us, just so people are. And he literally, like mid-sentence, just like goes out, like head down. So I'm like, oh my gosh, what, like, does he diabetic? Like, I'm a medical professional. I end up holding him like from behind the seat. We figure out he's not diabetic. He doesn't have like an EpiPen or anything on him. We go to the hospital, and by the time we get to the hospital, he's pronounced dead. And he had like died in my arms, and we think it was a brain aneurysm because it was just like out like a light, and it was wild. It was interesting because the tour guides kept apologizing to us, and they kept saying, please don't think poorly of our country. And I'm just like, what? Like, what? This is just, it was just his time to go. And it just happened to be while we were there. Like, and hopefully he was doing something that he loved, showing people his country. And it was this crazy situation. And I will definitely say, like, for the weeks after that, it was very much of a reminder of like be really being real in the moment, because you just never know when it can be taken away from you. Did not expect to share that story today, but yeah, that was definitely, I think, probably my craziest story, but definitely the most impactful as far as the reminder of like to always be connected with individuals.
Yeah. Wow. Thanks Thanks for sharing. Yeah, that's definitely a life-changing experience, right?
Yeah, for
Um,
sure.
and yeah, and it's interesting, this the concept of being in the moment, right? I think we all really strive to do it,
Totally.
and it's sounds simple, right? But it's so hard, right? To your
Well,
point, just because what you said, right, is like, it's life, right? It's work, it's this, it's that.
totally.
You gotta do
We have
this, and
our phones on us. Everything is
uh,
pulling us in
yeah,
25 million directions. It is a struggle to stay productive and not like, and then there's also the concierge nature in me, which, when I was at a concierge desk, I was used to people coming up to me in person, phone calls coming in, responding in emails. So like I was training this muscle of multitasking,
right.
and so now I can set those boundaries, but like I'm also still used to being like, oh wait, somebody called this, that, oh, or I understand like if it's something work related, for me responding immediately is so important because I don't want to be the reason why like something breaks down or loses traction or whatever it is. So yeah, we're definitely pulled in a lot of different directions. So being present is very challenging at times.
Yeah. Yeah, what reminds me actually was interesting this Friday. I don't know, Friday I was flying back or something like that, and I couldn't connect to the internet right on the plane, and it was like a 3 hour flight. And first 5 minutes I was frustrated. I had all these projects I was gonna tackle, but then I said, "Listen, man, you never take a break, right?" I said, just take this to be present, right?
Yep.
And also freeing in certain way, right? It's like a lot of times we just gotta figure out, either life give us a little pause moment, or we should allow ourselves a little bit more of that, because once we can really experience that, it feels so
Yeah.
good. um,
Oh, it's funny because I had the same thing happen to me on a flight back from Paris this summer. And I was like, oh, I'm going to get all my work done on the plane. And then, no joke, 30 seconds before we're taking off, they're like, oh, by the way, our Wi-Fi isn't working. And I'm like, that's a 10 and a half or like 11-hour flight. I'm like,
yeah.
who do I need to tell? Oh my gosh. And then it was interesting because I ended up having a great conversation with the woman sitting next to me. She was traveling with a dog. I made friends with others. Somebody in first class kept like coming back to, I was like in premium economy or whatever. And they were coming back to me like, here, have a drink. And I'm like, this is such a social flight, because we were all forced to interact with each other. And I was like, well, okay, I didn't get work done, but at least that happened. So,
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
right.
And
Sometimes
it's
life
funny.
makes you take that pause.
Yeah, and it's funny because I already ate some of these snacks, but then the flight attendant, she gave me a little baggie
Oh my
with
gosh,
all the
cute.
and she wrote me a nice note, made a little
Oh,
drawing of me
oh my
panicking, the no
gosh, I
Wi-Fi,
love that.
and that was like a moment to really so yeah, so it's also part of the service, right? To your point, the hospitality is like how
Totally.
it could be something where someone is really grumpy and will complain for forever, to like, wow, this was a wow moment, right? That,
Oh,
you know,
totally. Totally.
yeah.
Well, and that's always interesting. I always find, and this is definitely from my years of working at the concierge desk, is that like, and I remind people, I was like, have you ever noticed that like bad things happen to grumpy people? Because like grumpy people, they like
Right, so
attract it.
true.
And I was just like, oh my gosh, like you always have like the client that's like complaining. You're like, man, I just hope things go smooth. And of course they never go smooth for them. And it's so true. Like, and that's always like my reminder of like, like sometimes stuff happens, but like if you sit there and you fester in it, it's just going to make it worse. Like, so try to be positive because then hopefully luckier things happen.
100%, 100%. Yeah, yeah, that is awesome. And talking about your experience as a concierge, I don't
Yeah.
know, like I'm sure you get asked a lot of things. Was
Yeah.
there any kind of unusual, like, or super difficult ask that you had in your years as a concierge?
Interesting. I mean, I'm just trying to think as far as like the most difficult, they definitely got like unusual as far as like, oh, they would be visiting from another country and they'd buy a dog. And it's like, okay, well, now we have to get all the shots for our dog and get the dog trained. And how do we go about then going home with our new pet? So I think a lot of that has become far more simplified in recent years, but it was definitely challenging at the time. What was it? There was somebody that was like, oh, we want to come with like our pet snake. It's like, no, my gosh, no, you're not bringing a pet snake to the hotel. Like, this is just not happening. Like what? But I think my favorite story, and I've told this before, but I haven't told it in a while. So I think but I had guests that were staying at the hotel, and there's a very famous place in Los Angeles called the Magic Castle. It's members only, that you have to be invited to go. And then that's just to even get like access. And then there has to be availability. And it was pretty last minute. And this couple, they wanted to go, and I can't remember if it was over like Easter or Valentine's Day weekend or something. And it just wasn't happening. And I was like, well, how about this? Like, it's full, I can get you access, but it's full. So I can't like make space become available. But why don't we bring the Magic Castle to you? And maybe we can just have a magician do a private magic show in your suite. And they're like, oh, that's so cool. So I remember like interviewing all these magicians like over the course of a week, sent them their options. They chose one. Then I was like, okay, well, we're a pet friendly hotel, but this magician wants to bring like a rabbit and a dove. So I had to go talk to the general manager and be like, I know we're pet friendly, but can we do a rabbit and a dove? And he's like, only you, Sarah. And I'm like, and he's like, yes, it's fine. I'm like, okay, great. And they ended up having an amazing time. And it was just like it was a fun thing to put together. Very bizarre. But it was also so cool. And afterwards they were like, that was such a great experience. Like, way to turn what was like a challenging situation into something that was so unexpected. We didn't even think about it, but it ended up being so memorable. And how cool, So I love that story.
Oh, yeah, that's nice. And I'm sure they never forgot that, right? I mean, that'll be something we'll cherish forever.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
That is awesome. Yeah. That is cool. So when you're still, you did some acting.
When I was younger,
Did you think you'd do that for a living, or was that fun?
That's interesting. I think all try to do it for a living. I mean, that's always kind of like the goal. And then that's how kind of how I got into hospitality. I was going to school at Georgetown, and I was working in restaurants. So I definitely had a background in restaurants. And then my cousin, who had gone to Lausanne, was working at the Four Seasons. And he was like, well, why work at this restaurant and get paid this, where you can work at the Four Seasons and get paid almost double? So, I was 18. I'm like, sure, cool. So that's like how I kind of got like a taste of working in hotels, on top of like working in restaurants. But then so with that, when I moved out to Los Angeles, absolutely pursuing, I mean, I honestly still have an agent. But it's very much changed. But yeah, I mean, that was kind of like the goal. And then when I moved out to Los Angeles, working at a hotel was the day job, so to speak. And so that's why when Ask a Concierge was born, it felt like it was finally blending my two worlds. Because I was performing stand-up, sketch comedy, and then I would like go and like work at like the Peninsula or the London. So I was living in those two worlds, and like I worked on movies, TV shows, all of that for a long time. So Ask a Concierge for me was like, hey, I get to like edit and produce my own stuff. I know how to do this. I've been editing and producing films. I know how to be on camera. I know how to write. I know how to edit, I know how to do the whole thing. And then it taps into like all the knowledge and the experience I had as my day-to-day profession, because at that point I had almost done it 10 years. So I was quote unquote, had expert hours, had logged those hours, so to speak. So that's where Ask a Concierge came from, and was very much like a melding of those two worlds. I still very much feel like that's what I do on a regular basis. Like there's an element of performing. And I also worked in radio too, because I again, what I said, I've always had like 25 million jobs because to me, experience is everything. And so when I was going to Georgetown, I'm like studying international relations. And then I got an amazing job to work in radio, and I was assistant producer of the morning show for Hot 99.5, which was like their top 40 radio station, and which paid like nothing. And so I was like, well, this is amazing. This was feeding me creatively. So I was being fed intellectually at school. I was being fed creatively working in radio. But then I was like, I need to make money. And then I would like bartend until 2 a.m. I don't think I slept very much those couple of years that I was doing all of that. But again, it's like you have that experience and it keeps you very humble. And you just like, anybody that knows me knows that I'm always willing to like roll up my sleeves and do the work of whatever it takes, to this day too, so always outwork everybody.
That is awesome. Talking about outworking. So talk a little bit about, your Good Morning Hospitality, Skift podcast show, and certainly also, if you don't mind sharing whatever you can about the transition,
Yeah. So for those that know, Good Morning Hospitality was under the Hospitality FM umbrella. And then that was very much owned and run by Will Slickers. And Will Slickers had been producing our show. He started originally Good Morning Hospitality with a morning show. And then as he was growing that, he reached out to Steve Turk and myself to then do the hotel version of this show on Wednesdays. So that's kind of how we got into the whole Good Morning Hospitality fold. I'll give Will so much credit for putting myself and Steve together. I mean, that first show we did, that was maybe like the third conversation we had. Like and people were like, oh my gosh, you guys are so great and fun together. We're like, we're still getting to know each other. Now it's obviously so different. Like we're all very good friends. But yeah, so I have to give full credit to Will because he was very much the driving force behind it all. So, Skift then ended up acquiring Hospitality FM and had like the select shows. Obviously, they had their favorites and their ones that they wanted to keep. We were very lucky that Good Morning Hospitality was one of them. And so that's been great. And then for those that follow them, they actually have a daily podcast that's called the Skift Daily Briefing. And I actually do that as well. So I recorded that right before we got on here. So that's been very cool because it's like the top 3 things that are happening in travel and hospitality, kind of like in a 3-minute nutshell. And so it's been a really fun transition. They're doing so many things. I mean, anybody that's in the travel and hospitality space obviously knows and respects Skift. And for a very long time, they've been trying to kind of plot out how to kind of grow their video and audio division. And this has been like an amazing partnership and so much more to come on that. So we'll just see what 2026 brings.
Yeah, that's exciting. And yeah, you guys have amazing chemistry together. It's fun to watch and really good natural content too. And how do you prepare for the top three that you share? Like, is it a lot of research? Is it
are you talking about for the Skift Daily Briefing?
For Skift Daily Briefing, yeah.
Oh, yeah. It's daily. So basically, like I woke up this morning, I went on the Skift because it is for Skift. So obviously it's like highlighting their content, their news. So I wake up every morning, I just kind of see what's been posted. And in my mind, it's like, okay, well, we want to kind of make it like as diverse as possible. So it's like I try to find something about hotels, something about airlines, something about, whether it's tech or cruises or tourism and something like that. So we try to cover at least like 3 different. I run it by them for approval. 99.9%. They're always like, yep, that looks good. So, I mean, that's also kind of how I've always been with my content. I'm like, if I find it interesting, I'm sure other people will find it interesting. And I think if you approach it with that, just kind of that like curiosity, that works. And then on Fridays, I do actually a video version of it. And that I kind of work with them because if there's something that's been doing very, very well that week, we'll kind of tie that back in. So then there's a video component to it. So yeah, right. Interesting stuff.
Yeah, that is it. And I love because you deliver it so so naturally as well. I love like how
Practice.
that is, yeah,
It's
that is
practice.
awesome.
Everyone's like, it's so effortless. And it's like, it took me 25 years to seem effortless. And there's a lot of takes that people don't see.
Don't see. Yeah.
We're not perfect. I'm not.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, one of the people that really helped me get over the hump from like that fear or hesitation, oh, he's not perfect or whatever, is that I don't know if you heard of him or you follow him, is Gary V.
Oh my gosh. I love Gary. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
He's amazing. I met
Yeah.
him a couple years ago too. Yeah, he's fantastic.
Ah, how cool.
Yeah. Talk about brain. So I'm like super fascinated with like people's processing power, like their speed, their processing speed. He might be one of the fastest brains I've ever been around. I've been around a lot of like highly like crazy speed. It was insane. It was crazy because I'd watch people ask him questions and he already knew the question, like the second word in. And it was like, oh my gosh, spit out the question faster. Cause I could just see him like, he was like ready to go. Amazing individual, by the way. Amazing.
Yeah. And I love how he he supports people from a positive perspective and say, listen, just go put out there and improve, but just do it, do something, right? Take that action and improve.
That's the whole thing. I mean, like that, what is it? Analysis paralysis. People are like, oh, but what about this? And then, I mean, that can be probably a whole conversation for another time, but like this weird, the crippling fear of failure. And that to me is so like, what? Like, I don't know. Failure is not a thing to me, especially when it comes to social media. It's like, just try. And it's like with trying, you learn what works. You learn what feels good to you. You see what people respond to. There's no failure. And like 24 hours, people have already forgotten about it because they've been pummeled with 652 other different things since then. But it's like, just try. And like, I always say, like, so long as like, you're not saying anything bad, you're not doing anything, like, so long as there's like good intent, like, just try it, like, that to me is like, that's the fun. That's okay. Well, like, I mean, I remember when I first posted a dance video and I'm like, nobody wants to see a concierge dancing. By the way, this was also before everybody was dancing on TikTok. And like, because if people that know me, they know that I'm serious, but I'm also very goofy, if we're able to tell. And so I start dancing and I had this video. I'm like, I just want to post it because I love this. I dance everywhere. I dance in the grocery store. I dance in weird places. I posted it and it did really, really, really well. And it was one of those things like, I was like, oh, wait, people want to see this side of me. They don't just see concierge there. They want to see this other side. So it's this reminder of like, if it scares you, if it makes you like a little bit nervous, like, oh, I don't know how I feel about this, do it. I just posted something today on LinkedIn that's like, could be kind of, some might see it as controversial, but I was like calling out like trends that I see that are going to change in social media. And like, there's some things and shifts I see coming. And I was like, oh, this makes me kind of nervous. I don't want people to take it the wrong way. But I was like, look, let's do it, and the chips will fall where they may. So yeah, like, dude, not perfect. Are you kidding me? Stories, by the way, is what helped. Stories on Instagram is what helped me become not as worried about failure or messing up, because you could just be you. It's a story. It goes away after 24 hours.
Yeah.
So,
love. Great advice, which you kind of, that was my next question for you, and I think you have some great ones. Did you ever receive like a fantastic advice that resonated with you in years?
Well, all the time. I mean, okay, let's see. I'll share like what's been coming up with friends recently, because I think so oftentimes I feel like the discussions that we have with friends are very reflective of like what other people are going through. And so I've had a lot of friends recently, I mean, probably because it's the end of the year, reflect back and it's like, oh, I didn't go as hard as I should have, or I had this, or I was pulled in all these different directions. And they're being very hard on themselves because like maybe they got laid off and they're like still trying to find a job, or, they've ended a relationship and they're now trying to like navigate that and what that feels like. And I saw this post, and it was this reminder about, like, flowers don't continually bloom. They have moments where they bloom and they grow, and then they have moments where they're not, and they're off season. And just like how we apply that to training in physical fitness, we have to remind ourselves that, like, we're not go, go, go 100 miles an hour all the time. Like, sometimes we just have to drive at a different speed. But the most important thing is that we still continue moving forward. So just continue moving forward. You might drive 10 miles an hour or 15 miles an hour, maybe even 5. And then, like, things will shift, and then you're driving faster, 30, 60, whatever. But, like, we're never going to constantly being in that, like, go mode. And so we have to understand the cycles to life and give ourselves grace when we have those moments, because we need that moment to kind of, like, rest, regroup, recalibrate before we have another sort of season of bloom. So that's one of my favorite things that I've been thinking about lately.
Yeah, I wrote it down.
Oh my gosh.
I'll tattoo in my mind here, because it's a beautiful way to look at it, right? Because,
Yeah.
and I think ties back to your journey, to your point, right? About all the years, everything that you do behind the scenes, right? And
Yeah.
then when they see the beauty that came out, all these achievements, all the accomplishments, right? That's the blow. But then it's like, we need to always kind of go back and, to your point,
Totally.
recheck with ourselves. What do we need to do different? Do we need to rest and then keep going,
Yeah.
right?
And like, life happens, and it's okay. Like, maybe we've got, like, our professional life that we're on a trajectory, and it's like something's happening in our personal life. Like, maybe a family member is sick, or, like, there's a big change in your world. Like, give yourself that credit that it's like, okay, we might just have to go through the motions, professionally, until we kind of, like, get in a better place, personally. But it's all okay. That's part of the human experience. And then, all those lessons that we end up, hopefully lessons that we end up learning through all of these things, we can just, bloom even better, brighter, all of that. So, yeah. Didn't think you were going to go this deep with me, did you?
No, I don't know. Like, that's what I love about it, right? That, to your point, a little bit, that unscripted thing, because, just hear kind of really, what's inside, and I couldn't be more thankful, right, for you for saying yes, for really opening up and sharing an amazing journey experience. I learned a lot about you that I didn't know, and hopefully people love hearing from these, because I think there's a lot about life, about growth and professional, but then also about the industry. So, and thanks for all you do for all of us.
Oh my God.
I love following you. I love watching what you
Likewise.
do. You always come from a good place. You bring light, you bring joy, and it makes a big difference. So thank you.
Oh my goodness. No, thank you. I mean, again, like, what you're doing and having these conversations and everything that you've been able to bring. I mean, I think that that's what makes it so special, is that this industry isn't an I industry. It's a we industry. And that's how we grow and we learn from each other. And it just makes sense. And it's like to continue having those conversations, because all too often, whatever we're going through and thinking, somebody else is as well. So sometimes we just have to extend that sort of hand. And it's like, hey, we're in this together, which is, to me, the root of hospitality.
Yeah. Amazing. So, Sarah, thank you.
Thank you.
Hope you have a great holiday season, and I'm sure we'll be chatting soon again.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.